3 years into retirement, what I loved and what I didn't. I'm 3 years into retirement and I've learned more about myself than I did in 40 years of working. Some of it was pure gold, but some of it I wish somebody had warned me about. I'm 63 now. After decades of getting up, going to work, and doing what needed to be done, I thought I had retirement figured out. My dream was to sleep in, travel, spend time with family, and maybe finally read some of those books on that list. But here's what they don't tell you in those retirement planning seminars. And look, I'm not complaining here. Retirement is incredible, but it's also kind of complicated in ways that I didn't quite expect. Welcome to the UnRetired, where you're not done, but you're finally doing what you want. If you're approaching retirement or living it already, you want the truth instead of the sugar-coated version. So hit the like button and subscribe for more of these important discussions. All right, let's get into this. Here's what I loved. The first thing was time sovereignty. Day 3 of retirement, I actually woke up at 6 a.m. You'd think that I'd sleep in, but no, I actually got up at 6 a.m. and it wasn't because I had to, but it was because I wanted to get up and watch the sunrise. Well, that moment, that choice, it felt kind of revolutionary. For the first time in decades, my time was truly my own. No meetings, no deadlines, no apologizing for taking a long lunch break. I got to start my day with intention and not obligation. And you know what they say, time is more valuable than money. You can always earn again, but you can never relive moments. So I found that I had time sovereignty. Next was relationship renaissance. My wife and I actually had our first 2-hour conversation in years. Not about schedule, logistics, or what our kids are doing. It was just about dreams, memories, what we actually think about life. When you're not rushing to the next thing and you can actually be present for the people you love, it makes a huge difference. Not only to have conversations like that with my wife, but I also do with my daughter. Time with family became more present and more genuine. Next was rediscovering my core self. But this one kind of surprised me the most. I started writing again, something I hadn't done in 20, 25 years. I used to love writing and the creative process, but my career and making money, well, they just kind of got in the way and I kind of put that little hobby and passion to the side. So I realized this is who I was before work, and work clothes and the daily routine totally consumed me. Retirement doesn't just give you time. It gives you permission to remember who you were before you became what you did for a living. It wasn't what I planned, it was who I wanted to be. I'm curious now that I've shared that with you, what was your identity before retirement? Drop me a comment. I'm curious to see who you were before the transition. Sometimes sharing it helps us remember who we really are underneath all that work and career. Okay, now let's switch gears and let's talk about things I didn't see coming. As you know, retirement isn't all sunrise coffees and long conversations. So here are kind of the things that I didn't see coming. The void of validation. Week 2, I found myself checking my phone, kind of looking at it, and for what? There were no work emails, there was nobody calling about problems, no one needing my input. I didn't realize how much of my daily validation had come from being needed at work. And without that, who the heck was I? That level of quiet, it's deeper than just having meetings. The next thing I didn't expect was the identity problem. I was at a party and someone asked me just casually, what do you do? And of course I totally froze because for 30 years I had an answer. Now I work out, I read, I exist, I play golf. I'm not exactly sure what I do. Your job doesn't just pay your bills. Over the years, it becomes what defines you. And when that's gone, you're left with this question, who am I when I'm not at work? That identity I carried for years, it didn't come with me when I stopped working. Next thing was the guilt spiral. 3 months in, I felt guilty for sleeping until 7:30. Guilty for watching sports talk shows on ESPN at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I felt guilty for just not being very productive. 40 years of working doesn't just stop because you retire. Your brain still thinks that rest is lazy, even when it's literally what you planned for and earned in all that time. It's not clinical depression, but retirement can quietly be unsettling. The next thing that totally surprised me was what I call the loneliness surprise. Here's one that nobody likes to talk about. I've been around coworkers and people all day long, 5 days a week for decades. Suddenly, some days, I'd realize I hadn't spoken to another human being since breakfast. In fact, some days I'd even go multiple days without talking to anybody outside of my wife and my kid. It's not depression, it's just the adjustment stage. But man, the quiet, it can be louder and be screaming inside your head than you expect. Long stretches with no agenda, no people. This level of silence is kind of eerie. It makes you kind of question your purpose. What am I working towards? Who am I doing it with? So those were some of the things I didn't expect. How did I turn that around and what did I did to thrive? I could have let those challenges define my retirement, but I didn't. Instead, I treated them like wake-up calls. So here's what I did. I started creating intentional structure. I figured out I needed some kind of routine, but not the kind that stressed me out. So I created what I call soft structure. Coffee in the morning, daily walk, time to read, time to email friends and family and all that. Some time to research different things or think about projects that I'm working on. Predictable enough to feel grounded, flexible enough to still feel free, to still feel like I'm retired. The next thing I did was I created emotional maintenance. My wife and I started doing something we'd never done before. Weekly, how are we really doing conversations? Almost like mini board meetings for the family or the couple. Not about the grocery list or who's picking up the dry cleaning or driving the kid here or there, but about how this whole retirement thing is actually affecting us. Because retiring isn't just about money. It messes with your head too. I also carved out time to just sit and think. Take long walks, do some journaling, moments to actually process what I was going through instead of just pushing through it. The next thing I did was I added purpose projects. I started helping young executives who were developing their careers and building companies. Not full-time, not stressful, just sharing what I'd learned over the years. I didn't need to save the world, but I did need to do something to contribute to it. Something to finish, something to give, purposeful projects that mattered and were important to me and other people. Next, I thought of health as a foundation. And I also realized if I'm gonna have 20 years of retirement, maybe more, I better be able to enjoy them. Health isn't just about living longer, but it's also about living better. Regular exercise, good nutrition, mental challenges. I'd always been a bit of a fitness buff, but now I started adding new exercises and diet choices that would be better to serve a 60 to 80-year-old instead of trying to do the exercise and fitness routines that I did when I was 30. At the end of the day, health fuels independence. If you're navigating retirement or planning for it, hit the like and subscribe for no-nonsense conversations about what really matters after 60. I share fresh insights on retirement mindset, health, and lifestyle every week without any hype or fluff. So here are the big takeaways. Here's what I learned after being retired for 3 years. This might sound cliche, but retirement really isn't a destination. It's the actual journey itself. You need time to learn the language. You spent decades becoming someone at work. Now you get to decide who you are in life. You have more time than you think, but less than you assume. So use it intentionally. Don't think that freedom is the absence of responsibility. It's actually the ability to choose your responsibilities. Retirement elevates freedom, but it's also responsibility for your own happiness and fulfillment.